large and for the small. Lay a big hit and pass a kick the ball. This game is for us all. From Seattle down toward the Keys, this game is you, this game is me. Cast dogs and steer, be the tree. This game is America, so sing it loud with me. College football forever. College football forever. Downtown LA, Starkville sit. 1 week you're up next, take a dip. Run the rock or let it rip. This game is America. All say, can you sing it with me?
We just stepped on her face with a hot-tail broken Crawford nose. Whoa, Nelly!
College football forever. College football forever. College football forever. College football forever.
College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Sherbert of 24/7 Sports have you covered. Beginning right now.
All right, better late than never. Got off to a little bit of a late start because of some StreamYard issues. Apparently, there's a lot of people talking on this particular format right now, and we're going to be doing a lot of talking as well as we do each and every Tuesday on College Football Forever. Say hello to Brad Crawford of 24/7 Sports. He is back. Good morning, Brad.
Good to see you, Mike. Vanderbilt just named a starting quarterback minutes ago.
Tell me it's Curtis.
It is not Curtis.
Oh!
Berkowitz, not the
Berkowitz?
Five-star Jared
Blaze?
Curtis.
Okay. Well, I'm 4 for 5. I was trying to go a perfect 5 for 5. I still say Curtis starts before year's end for a number of reasons, but we'll see. I have not been at any Vanderbilt camp. I don't have a Vanderbilt insider. I just thought the temptation to go with a kid that highly touted would be too much to say no. But, kudos to Clark Lee for standing on principle. Obviously, he got outplayed and outperformed in camp. So that's it. The quarterback battles are done in the SEC, right? I don't think we have any left.
That's it. Aaron Philo named the starter this week at Florida over Tramel Jones. We've got Faison Brandon, five-star quarterback in Knoxville. First true freshman starter at Tennessee since 2004, I want to say. So been a long time.
And I feel like I know who that is, but I cannot remember right now. It's not Bray, is it? Tyler Bray?
I'm looking right now. Brent
Schaefer. Okay.
And then, of course, Keelan Russell at Alabama, which means Austin Mack has lost a quarterback battle for a third time.
For a third time. That's rough. That to me was maybe the easiest from the standpoint of they have too much invested in that kid. And we have to start talking about these things in professional terms, right? In let's say in Major League Baseball, the first round bonus baby might not have as good of numbers as the 13th rounder, but he's going to have a better chance of getting called up first because that's who the team is investing in. Alabama has invested a lot in Keelan Russell, and I mean he's the most highly recruited quarterback that Alabama's ever had, if you just go on recruiting rankings and such. So that one I just thought would go to Russell, and I think that's what all the fans wanted to see, Brad, is that somehow, some way, he would shine enough because his ceiling is much higher than anybody else's in that Alabama camp. If the people that you talk to that know more about Russell than perhaps we do because they see him a lot. So they went with the guy that clearly has the higher ceiling and they feel like can take him to a higher place by year's end.
Along with 4 new starters on the Alabama O-line, to me that shows that Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb, the play caller there in Tuscaloosa, know that when it's 3rd and 8, The play breaks down. Keelan Russell maybe can give you more than Austin Mack. We saw this play out last year, that NIL angle you mentioned, by the way. Austin Simmons was getting paid more, considerably more than Trinidad Chambliss at Ole Miss, which is why he was the starter in September. But Chambliss, I was told, outplayed Austin Simmons throughout fall camp. But there was pressure, Lane Kiffin in Oxford, to start Austin Simmons because of how much they invested in him from the portal. So eventually all these quarterback situations play themselves out, especially early. I do think we'll see Austin Mack this season, but right now, Keelan Russell obviously has the highest upside in Tuscaloosa. And when he's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the SEC, along with the freshman Faison Brandon at Tennessee, a similar situation there, you got to play the guy.
Yeah, people want ROI. You're going to start hearing that term a lot more in college football, I believe. I have had a number of coaches tell me in both sports, football and basketball, that there is such a thing as donor fatigue, where you keep going to Johnny Warbucks time and time again and saying, well, in order to get this kid, we got to add another $500,000. But at some point, if you're not winning at all, the people might say, you know what? I'm not getting return on investment. I'm not paying all this money for 8-4. That's just not worth it to me.
This is why the leash is going to be so short on Lane Kiffin and Baton Rouge. I mean, every 48 hours, they're adding another $500,000 to this 45 million plus roster there. And I know Lane has sort of tempered expectations for year one, at least throughout the offseason. But man, when you have the highest paid roster in the SEC outside of Texas, it's not, championship or bust. Now, but it's CFP or bust for sure. You have to at least be in the conversation down the stretch this season in Baton Rouge. Lane Kiffin has a Avengers type roster there. So LSU's a team that needs to win big.
Let's dive into that, because just when you thought the anarchy was at its high point, we now have guys that you will watch on TV perhaps in a preseason NFL game get cut and then looking to go back to college football, and LSU is looking to get two of them. The SEC yesterday sends out a statement, very well written, very, very well refined, basically saying we don't support this. But there's nothing in there that's saying it's illegal, or you're going to have to forfeit games, or we're going to hit you with sanctions. So I don't know if there's any teeth in the statement based on, if you just read it word for word. Obviously it's not deterring LSU and Lane Kiffin.
And Lane Kiffin is simply doing what he does best. He's signing the best players available to him, regardless of the circumstances. This is a college football issue. It's not necessarily an SEC issue. Could the SEC have been a little more heavy-handed and said, we're not doing this, making a mandate? Yes. Would that have held up in court? Say if LSU tried to sue the conference? Probably not. But signing Xavier Harris, a 6'8", 340-pound defensive tackle, yeah, that makes LSU better. And obviously now they're trying to get Daquan Wright, the Browns tight end, who played at Ole Miss last season. Lane Kiffin knows exactly what he's getting in Daquan Wright. This is just Lane, like I said, being Lane. He doesn't care about anybody's outside opinion. He said when he first got to LSU that I'm going to sign the best players I can and put this university, this school, in position to win a national championship. And he is doing that, man. No holds barred this offseason.
You have the two renegades, because Will Wade's probably saying, when is the NBA preseason? Who gets cut and who can I sign? Because I need players, because most of those foreign kids are not going to be eligible. LSU is prominently wearing the black hat. They are the Raiders of the 70s. They want you to hate them. Just as long as they're winning, they don't care. And I think LSU is going to be just a fascinating storyline all year long. With all the talk about so many transfer quarterbacks, it's easy to overlook Sam Leavitt. He's a good player. When he's healthy, is a very good pickup for them. Tennessee certainly wanted him. So I don't know. I mean, when you start looking at it, I think when we were on with Josh Pate last week, I threw this out there because everybody has Georgia, Texas, and some version of 1 and 2 in the SEC. And then a lot of people have Ole Miss third. Opinions vary on Oklahoma. Opinions vary on Alabama, LSU, A&M, Tennessee, all in that mix, so to speak. But have you given a forecast on LSU? Where do you see them finishing in the league?
Yeah, LSU is my third and final team in the
Okay.
CSC from the SEC. I think LSU finishes 10-2. There's some tough games on that schedule, but roster-wise, it's right up there with Texas. This is a better roster than what Alabama has. It's a better roster than what A&M has. A&M, by the way, is my most overrated team inside the preseason top 15. I think A&M could go from, double-digit wins last season to maybe a 7-5, 8-4 type finish. They lost that much of productivity on both sides of the ball. But LSU's a team, Mike, that should open with a bang against Clemson. And then that week 3 matchup at Ole Miss is one that, as far as September football games go, I'm most looking forward to.
My goodness, there's not going to be
Batteries
enough.
are going to be thrown at Lane.
Oh, Lord. And Ole Miss, I hear a lot of people talk about Oxford and Ole Miss, who clearly have never been to a game at Ole Miss. It's not the most intimidating. It's a great scene, and the square is phenomenal. It's unlike, I would say, anything in college football in terms of just being unique. But once you get inside the stadium and they kick the ball off, I think most Ole Miss fans would say this. It's not top 5 loudest. It's not top 5 most intimidating. It's not any of those things. And their fans don't have a reputation of being unruly. But this could be the exception to all of that, because the hatred for Lane, and now you have the story on having the FBI sweep the Ole Miss locker room, or not at the actual FBI, but somebody from a former FBI agent basically going in there and sweeping for bugs and any type of material. That was from Walker Jones, the head of their collective over there, basically saying we weren't gonna leave anything to chance with Lane Kiffin. The drama of that game is going to be unmatched, and I'm surprised they put it so early in the schedule. I thought there might be a little more buildup, but I'm kind of glad, because I can't wait for it to be here.
Storyline after storyline, just, news abundant from that game. And you mentioned the atmosphere there. I think it started a few years ago when Ole Miss started that land shark thing they do on defense. The games I've been there, it's Vaught Hemingway in the second half of games, especially when Ole Miss is playing our top 25 team. It does get loud. Like you said, it's not a top 3 or 4 environment in the SEC, but it does get loud. And that game is going to mimic Lane Kiffin's first trip back to Neyland had a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah. And that's where he did have things thrown at him. And we don't condone or encourage that activity for sure, although we wouldn't be surprised if it happened. What are the storylines you feel like people are overlooking, Brad? You're out there churning out columns every day on CBS Sports, the college football page. You find unique angles. You have to do all this without games, and there's always some good content on there. But what do you think people are just completely overlooking and not talking about right now?
From an SEC standpoint, Mike, I think it's the first-year coaches not named Lane Kiffin or Pete Golding. I don't think we've talked enough this offseason about the potential of maybe an Auburn in year one being a surprise team with Byron Brown at quarterback, a lot of that roster coming back defensively, DJ Durkin being retained as defensive coordinator. It's a lot of continuity there for a first-year coach and Alex Golesh. Arkansas under Ryan Silverfield, he's been trying to drum up business from everybody, Walmart included, man, as they try and put together a winning program in Fayetteville. And then, of course, Florida finally naming Aaron Philo the starting quarterback there. John Summerall signed Georgia Tech OC Buster Faulkner. And you sort of saw the writing on the wall when they signed Faulkner that as long as he got his backup quarterback from Georgia Tech and Aaron Philo, he'd be the starter. But I think Summerall kind of slow played this quarterback competition to make sure Tramel Jones was staying focused, because he knows that, one early season injury and it's Tramel's job.
Yeah, I'm with you on the first year coaches. I give Silverfield a pass at Arkansas. I just don't think Arkansas is going to be able to compete.
Agreed.
in those 9 league games. Maybe they steal one, but maybe he pulls a Sam Pittman and just overachieves early, and none of us saw it coming, and he can be out there and be like, I told you so. But honestly, I just don't see that based on purely roster. There's no indictment on the hire or on him as a coach, or even on KJ Jackson as a quarterback who flashed at times, played a nice game against Texas for one. But I look at the other ones, and these are not, the 5-year rebuild doesn't exist anymore for programs. And it certainly doesn't exist at Auburn or at Florida. You mentioned LSU. Obviously, that's a veteran coach. But some of these other jobs, even Kentucky is going to want some results early. They do spend a lot of money on football, not just basketball, at Kentucky. And I just wonder what's realistic. Every time that John Summerall goes to a podium, the media gushes. I mean, he's great behind a microphone, and that's terrific. But that doesn't mean anything come Saturday once the ball is kicked.
Right.
And Florida fans aren't looking for if we just eke out a 7-5, they want to be contending for playoffs sooner rather than later. So I'm very curious what that looks like. Some people would tell you that it's the most talented roster they've had in Gainesville in a while. So it's not just the coaching change, but it is a new quarterback. It is a new coordinator. It is a new coach. They had to replace a number of guys on defense. The offensive line was a disappointment last year. So they have Auburn in week 3. And the loser of that game, I think, is going to be a little extra sting in terms of, okay, this is going to be a breakthrough year. It probably won't be for the team that loses that game.
The loser of that game at Jordan-Hare likely does not get to bowl eligibility. That's how big that early season game is for Auburn and Florida. And Florida's wide receiver room, I think, is arguably the most underrated nationally. You bring in Eric Singleton from Auburn to go with basically wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown. Both those guys have been banged up a little bit in fall camp, but they're healthy now. It really comes down to, can this Buster Faulkner offense that's, to be honest, it's ground heavy. At Georgia Tech, we saw a ground and pound type deal with the Yellow Jackets. And Florida's got Jaden Ball back, 1,000-yard rusher that they had to overpay, by the way, to retain. Jaden Ball got several multi-million-dollar offers, to sign with a national title contending program. Not saying Florida's not this offseason, but so it's getting him back is big. And, obviously we mentioned Will Stein at Kentucky. He sounded super confident in this team at SEC Media Days. But you look at Kentucky's schedule, man. I mean, it's so Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Missouri, 7 ranked teams out of your 9 conference games. That's going to be tough for Kentucky. Also, a game at Williams-Brice that will be a challenge as well. So I like what UK did in the portal. Spent a ton of money on the offensive line. Got Kenny Minchie from Notre Dame at quarterback. But, yeah, the ceiling's maybe 7 wins for Will Stein there because that's a hard place to win at.
They host Alabama in the lone SEC game in week 2. Alabama and Kalen DeBoer is going to be another fascinating case study because everything says they can't fire Kalen DeBoer. They just have already invested too much in him. And he hasn't done terribly.
Sure.
But when you follow the GOAT, he hasn't done good enough to keep that fan base happy. So what's realistic for Alabama this year?
Well, and the thing about Kalen DeBoer and always being compared to Nick Saban and what he was able to do during his time in Tuscaloosa, Saban didn't have any of those super head-scratching, blowout, we didn't show up losses. Kalen DeBoer's already had a couple of those, and losing by 35 points in Pasadena was a bad look. Somehow, he transitioned that into a multi-year extension a few months later, which was a wild move, in my opinion, this offseason for Alabama to, add more money and years to Kalen DeBoer's contract based on what he's done these first 2 years. But, I mean, he is the SEC's active winner in winning percentage against top 25 teams. Kalen DeBoer usually gets it done against the good teams on the schedule. And then there's some teams where, Alabama maybe plays with its food a bit. But 4 new offensive line starters, brand new backfield. They're super banged up right there during fall camp, and obviously a first-year starting quarterback. So there's more questions right now for the Crimson Tide than I think they have answers. That's part of the reason why for the 3rd straight offseason, I've got Alabama outside of my preseason 12-team bracket.
So not in the play. So that'd be 2 out of 3 on the outside looking in. That would be make for a very long offseason. for Kalen DeBoer. And a lot of callers, angry callers to the Paul Feinbaum show, which I don't think he wants any part of that. Is this Texas's year? Because talent-wise, they got it done in the portal. They've been recruiting well, and they have Arch Manning coming back. On the surface, there doesn't seem to be much of a weakness in Austin. So is this the year they finally really make hay and actually compete for the biggest of prizes, the national championship?
Well, they're going to have to finally beat Kirby Smart in Georgia. I think Texas' roster right now is better than Georgia, but Steve Sarkisian hasn't shown yet that he can beat Kirby head-to-head. They got blown out at Sanford Stadium last season. They've lost at home to Georgia during Sark's career. And I made the comment, Mike, on social media earlier this week that if Texas does not get to the CFP with this $50 million roster, I think Steve Sarkisian might be replaced as head coach this offseason. And if you read the tea leaves, I mean, if you read the tea leaves and kind of follow some of the Texas insiders who cover that program on a daily basis, I think you're going to see some of the money and big-time boosters in Austin get pretty restless if this team, with your 5-star quarterback, with 2 first-round picks on the O-line, with Cam Coleman, with Colin Simmons, so much investment in the backfield this offseason, if they don't get to the CFP and win a couple games, I do think it's a job that would be the biggest in college football to open this offseason. I'm not projecting that by any means. I think Texas, this is the year that they get to likely a semifinal appearance at worst, but Arch Manning has to deliver, and the offensive line has to stay injury-free. And right now, that left tackle, Trevor Gooseby, has a knee situation, and he's going to start in September, but just watch that closely, because if they have one of those 2 first-round guys up front go down, then this changes the ballgame a little bit for the Horns.
He is Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports, CBSSports.com. Mike Morgan, our producer, is the Mad Dog, Phil Mullinax, behind the scenes. For those of you watching live, and many of you that will eventually watch later on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, every format out there, you can catch the program. One program we haven't talked about yet is South Carolina. You got the helmet there over your left shoulder.
Sure.
They're fascinating to me for a lot of different reasons. Usually when you have guys that people are infatuated with just on pure athletic prowess, from their quarterback and Lenore Sellers, from the defensive end, who everybody's still waiting to see the health issue on that back, and Dylan Stewart, and a 6'6" track freak wide receiver in Nick Harbor. Usually that means, oh man, that's a top 10 team, especially with a coach that's been in the program for 6 years. They've recruited well. They've done well in the portal. But I think there's still a lot of I could go either way on this. So people, I find people hedging their bets, Brad. What I see the national guys talk about South Carolina, they don't put the Gamecocks in the top 5 or even the top 8 very often, but they say, but you better watch out for them.
Yeah.
They don't put Lenore Sellers in the top 5 quarterbacks, but they say, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a first-round pick. So you're hedging your bets. You want to fall in love with this story, but you're not really there yet. You default to, they'll be happy to be 7-5. When you look at it, what do you see?
Mike, there's the reason for that is, this program, the highest of highs, it has a 8-point lead late against Alabama at home and whiffs there and loses that game. Has a 3.5 touchdown lead at Texas A&M against a team that made the CFP and then blows that game in the second half. So I can see some of the hedging and some of the questions about why this team was, on paper, maybe 8 or 9 wins based on talent, but scaling back expectations a bit. For me, I think the biggest key, besides getting off to a hot start, is just looking better offensively at the line of scrimmage and in the backfield. A lot of talk has been about this schematic change with Kendall Briles, and can Lenore Sellers get back to 2024 form? Well, the answer to that comes, can the Gamecocks run the football, and can they push opposing SEC teams off the line of scrimmage? Defensively, they've done that last couple of years, but offensively, they have not, man. Last couple of years, they have not protected the quarterback well. They've had no running game to speak of outside of the 1 year with Rocket Sanders. So you've got to get better physically at the line of scrimmage, which has been the biggest issue for me during the Shane Beamer era. I think this team on paper has a roster capable of being one of the SEC's best. Certainly multiple day one picks if all goes well this season, but you need to see it from a consistency standpoint. And the offensive line is completely new. I called it a Frankenstein offensive line in spring because, we had never really heard of these guys outside of being starters at other programs, how they would fare in the SEC. And now Jacarius Peak expected back, NC State's tackle, who the Gamecocks paid a lot of money for in the portal. Lenora Sellers is going to have a good year because I think this offense fits him, but not if they can't find a running game and not if he doesn't have any protection. So defensively, I'm not worried about Clayton White. Offensively, I still have my doubts.
And that's been the trouble spot more often than not for Carolina over the years, has been on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive line you mentioned, and then I think everybody's curious, is Matt Fuller, is he that bell cow back? Because it's a loaded league of running backs this year. I mean, especially when Ahmad Hardy gets back from injury, he's going to miss week 1 for Missouri. But when you look at him and Lacey, you mentioned Ball, and Texas has 2 of them, and there's a lot of really good running backs in the SEC, and it's as old as time. But yeah, you do need to be able to run the ball. You mentioned Sark on a possible hot seat. As unfathomable as that might be, you're absolutely right in that when you spend that kind of money, with that comes lofty expectations. If you start looking at odds on hot seat talk, because there's so many changes in the SEC, you don't have many on the hot seat, but one guy is Shane Beamer, according. That's like the Vegas odds favorite if there was going to be a change. You and I know that program pretty well, and I would say the expectations are more realistic than they are in other places, and they're not just going to fire a coach because you don't make it to the playoff or you don't make it to Atlanta. I think 7-5 or better, and he would be A-okay. The program's very healthy, the culture, the recruiting, everything else. But if you dip below that, and you're about to lose a 3-year starter at quarterback, and you're about to lose a top 10 draft pick at defensive end, and all of a sudden, and you can't blame it on the offensive coordinator anymore because you got your 4th one in 6 years, things could get a little bit dicey if that is the case in Columbia.
6-6 with a bad loss to Clemson it'd be questionable. But I've said all season, I think as long as Shane gets to bowl eligibility this season, he's going to extend his tenure. I don't think the South Carolina Gamecocks are going to go 5-7 and Shane Beamer is going to be fired. The only reason we're talking about Beamer on the hot seat is because so many programs pulled the plug last cycle.
Yeah.
And a few of those we really didn't see coming. So Shane would be like on my hot seat number 7 or 8 nationally. I don't think he's up there with Mike Loxley, who, let's face it, this is his last year at Maryland. Some of these guys, Lincoln Riley at USC, if he doesn't get to the CFP or win 9 games this fall, he might be an NFL casualty, or USC might change regimes there. So I think Shane, I can go on the record and say I think he'll be South Carolina's coach in 2027, and the Gamecocks will get to a bowl game this season. But if it starts off rocky and, South Carolina loses that SEC home opener to Mississippi State, then some, conversations start happening, I would say.
Yeah, things can get a little bit there could be some anxiety if you lose that game with what's left on the schedule. The following week, of course, will be in Tuscaloosa. What about big picture nationally? The Big Ten's on a heater. I mean, there's no debating it. 3 consecutive national championships, Big Ten media days, a lot of coaches puffing their chest out. Tony Petitti, the commissioner, huffing and puffing away. You got something going good when Brett Bielema is talking smack, for crying out loud. But look, they have the trophies the last 3 years to do it. The league seems to be in good health. People knocked adding all these packed schools from the West Coast and being spread out all over the place. You know what? At the end of the day, I don't know if people even care. The Big Ten knows that all that has done is help the league overall, even though the 3 that have won the title were initial Big Ten schools. But adding Oregon, adding Southern Cal, these are things that strengthen the league. It seems like the Big Ten is in awfully good shape. And once again, whether it's Ohio State or Indiana or Oregon, they'll be a factor in the national championship race.
And I think the Big Ten right now, Mike, is in line to win a 4th consecutive title. If you gave me the Big Ten's top 3 right now against the field including Notre Dame and Miami, I would likely take Ohio State, Indiana, or Oregon to win a title this season. I know Oregon's kind of been the sexy offseason pick because the Ducks haven't won one yet with Dan Lanning, but they've been really close, man. I mean, they've had an unbeaten regular season in the Big Ten already. They've gotten to that championship game and played Penn State, and they've gotten to a CFP semi. So Oregon's a team that I think right now is heightened nationally. And the biggest difference right now between the Big Ten and SEC and why the Big Ten's winning at a different level in December and January is just the quality of coaches. The elite of the elite right now, Ryan Day, Kirk Cignetti, Dan Lanning, those guys are in the Big Ten. And the SEC maybe has two of the top 6 or 7 coaches nationally. The Big Ten may have 3 or 4, also including Kyle Whittingham at Michigan, a fantastic new hire in Ann Arbor. So I don't think the Big Ten's reign atop college football is ending anytime soon. And the SEC moving to a 9-game conference schedule, I think is more detrimental to that league moving forward than it is positive.
I think the coaches would agree with you. The only reason they agreed to 9 is they thought we'd have an expanded playoff, but we don't.
Right.
As of right now, we're still at 12. So you would put your money. That's interesting, because I know you've said you've got Miami number 1, right? That's the most talented.
Miami's my preseason number 1. Yeah.
Okay, but you would still put your money on the Big Ten,
because I think that the regular season schedule for Miami and Notre Dame, while it's positive and those schools are going to be either unbeaten or 11-1, 12-1 head into the CFP, the Big Ten is going to be more battle tested than the Canes and the Irish. And I just think right now that's the conference to beat.
We have any update on what the playoff is going to be post 2026? I've gotten burnt out with the whole storyline.
Well, I know the 20-team crazy angle is not going to happen. We're either going to 16 or 24. I think we're going to go to 16 before we go to 24, because 24 just, I mean, it really dumbs down this thing. If you're a top 25 team, all of a sudden you're a playoff team. We're going to have some lopsided opening round games. And then if we go to 16, I think there's still a chance that we keep conference championship weekend. And that's been a huge, positive play point for Greg Sankey, who all the other commissioners in the Power Four have said they're okay doing away with championship weekend. Greg Sankey and the SEC, they want to keep that first December weekend to, have those top teams in Atlanta. So I think we go to 16 before 24.
But you got to get unanimous approval on that, right? So how are you going to get Petiti and the others to flip when they're so hell-bent on 24?
I think Greg Sankey is going to have to meet somewhere in the middle with Petiti, and maybe the ACC and Big 12. There's been talk of potential play-in games, and the SEC and Big 10 having a certain number of guaranteed teams every season. I don't like that idea. If we go to 24, certainly you can have 5 and 5 or something from the 2 best leagues. But if we go to 16, Sankey and Petiti, they're going to have to hear from the CFP committee that, hey, us moving to a 9-game conference schedule is supposed to benefit us and not be detrimental.
There's a TV dynamic that I will not and probably should not get into, all that with ESPN and Fox. So we'll leave that for another time. That also is baked into the equation. All right, final couple of minutes here. Week 0, what are you looking forward to the most?
So the most underrated game nationally is UNLV and Memphis. I think the winner of that game has the early leg up in the G6 CFP conversation. I think Bobby Petrino's debut as UNC's play caller against TCU in Dublin is a very interesting game. Although I will say the games that we've seen in Ireland, Mike, have been like slogs offensively. I would go with the under there if I was making a best bet. And then NC State at Virginia. That game was first meant for Brazil. It has now got moved to Charlottesville, and it does count as an ACC game for both teams. That's a game where I've said on the record, if NC State goes into Charlottesville and wins, there's a path to 10 wins because the Pac have the easiest schedule in the Power Four, and they got the best player on the field in C.J. Bailey at quarterback. So that's a game that should be a fun one Saturday afternoon.
Do they don't have Miami?
NC State does not have Miami.
Okay.
In the regular season.
So and do they don't have Notre Dame? which is kind of a pseudo ACC.
NC State does not play Clemson, Miami, or Notre Dame.
Wow. Okay. I did not realize that.
They do not play SMU either. So my preseason top 3 ACC teams, State doesn't play any of them. The only ranked team NC State plays during the regular season is Louisville on October 3rd, and that one's in Raleigh. So this is a yellow brick road for Dave Dorn, man.
If Dave Dorn was ever going to break out of the clouds of 7-5, 8-4, this would be the time to do it. Jackson Arnold, by the way, is starting for Dan Mullen and UNLV. Say what you want about Jackson Arnold. He's a perfect fit for a Dan Mullen offense because he can run. He can flat out run. His problem has just been throwing the football. He's never been consistently good at it at his stops along the way. Yeah, I think this is the best week 0 slate we've ever had.
It's been
I'm all in.
Yeah. There's 4 watchable games. And then Stanford, Hawaii in the nightcap Saturday. This is Tavita Pritchard's first game at Stanford, the guy that was handpicked by Andrew Luck to lead this program. And then, of course, Hawaii as a quarterback that really came on strong at the end of last season. So Hawaii, Stanford should be a good one too. No doubt. Man, so glad games are here. I know you'll be on the road for a lot of them. Brad, always appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in a few days. And we'll keep on keeping on as we actually will have games to discuss next time you and I are on together on the program. Thanks a bunch, man. Finally, man, week 0 is upon us. Thank goodness. He's Brad Crawford. Appreciate Brad joining us. And, of course, behind the scenes, the Mad Dog, Phil Mullinax, doing double duty because he's just that versatile. We'll see you next time. Another installment of College Football Forever. Yes, branded as such here on the program. Appreciate all of you tuning in. Last week had record numbers with Josh Payton. I realize many of you can't catch it live in the morning, but you can catch it anytime. It is absolutely free, whether it's YouTube or all the other audio formats I discussed at the top. We'll see you next time, next week, next Tuesday, as a matter of fact, on the show. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.